There are more than 40 shark and ray species that have been listed in the Convention of International Trade and Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, otherwise known as CITES. While law enforcement officials have started using technology to combat trafficking in shark products. Now, recognizing the challenge faced by law enforcement officials, WILDOCEANS, a program of the WILDTRUST through their Shark and Ray Protection Project, the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, that's the DFFE, and Traffic have put together a series of training sessions that will assist customs and law enforcement officials across South Africa. We have a chat to Simone Louw from Traffic about some of those technological interventions and the training that this global organization is currently conducting in South Africa. You're listening to your social newscast with me, Sam Marshall, brought to you by socialtv.co.za. Simone, thank you very much for your time. Before we get into kind of the technology that has been put in place to combat trafficking in shark products, let's quickly talk about your organization and its mandate.
Okay, so Traffic is an international NGO. They specialize in wildlife trade related issues. So for this shark trade, we provide information to government officials and customs officials on trade volumes and values of trade and who we exporting and who's importing our shark products, specifically from South Africa and internationally. And we provide recommendations on regulations to improve the trade and to help reduce impacts on threatened shark species.
Before we talk about the technology intervention and the work that you're doing in partnership with WILDOCEANS, a program of the WILDTRUST organization, you're also working with, I think one of their projects is called the Shark and Ray Protection Project.
Yes.
And then you're also working with the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment. Before we talk about that intervention, what are some of the challenges that's being faced? And what I'm really asking is, why did we need more interventions? Are the current programs not working? And what are the challenges that some of the organizations are facing? Now, I know you are working as a global organization and not just in South Africa.
Yes, so we are a global organization and worldwide. A lot of, and especially in Africa and South America, a lot of developing countries, customs officials are struggling to identify shark fins that are in trade. It's very hard, especially the threatened shark species. You need export permits to trade in them. And that's one of the biggest issues, is trying to identify these threatened species from the non-threatened species in trade. So we developed these training sessions with WILDTRUST and the Department of Forestry and Fisheries to assist these customs officials, because it's one of the reasons why shark fins are passing through borders without the relevant export permits, and illegal trade is continuing to go on. And it's mainly because of this capacity issue in identifying those shark fins.
Now, Simone, I know that you guys have started some of these interventions. What is the physical technological intervention that you have partnered on?
So we've partnered with the Department of Fisheries and WILDTRUST, as we said, and we've developed these identification tools. So these encompass pocketbooks, which frontline officials can use in the field, and it comes in hand with our 3D replica fins, which we've also developed. Traffic's developed through funding from Arcadia. And these 3D fins has completely changed the game for training customs officials and fisheries officials, because it's really hard to identify fins just from a book, from an ID guidebook, if you've never seen a threatened species fin before. So these fins give the officials an opportunity to see and feel the fin, to look at the specific characteristics of the fin and compare to a real seizure. If they come across a shark fin seizure, they can use these 3D fins and compare, and it makes the whole job a lot easier. especially when they come across these large consignments of shark fins, going through them with an ID book makes it really hard. So it's a combination of tools, the 3D fins, and then we've also developed QR codes that we've put on the 3D fins. They can scan them, especially if they're out in the field. They can scan the 3D fins and it takes them to a page with additional ID materials. So it's for that quick in the field identification that they need, because a lot of these processes move really quickly, and the customs officials need to be confident in their decision making. Should they hold this consignment? Is there threatened species in there? And this is what these tools is providing them with confidence in their decision making to stop a consignment, and they can go and do further genetic testing, which will further prove, okay, this consignment had threatened hammerhead species, which needs an export permit.
As an organization globally, having these conversations in your boardrooms or wherever you meet, obviously technology is a fantastic intervention. And as you've now explained so eloquently, just by having developed this 3D model of what a fin looks like, having this QR codes that gives you access to rapid information, having this pocketbooks, it's almost a game changer in many ways, because now the official has tools that they would have struggled with a couple of years ago to identify A from B. You're becoming smarter. You're capacitating officials to become smarter. Are the criminals becoming smarter as well?
Yes, it's always, I've found, since I've started with traffic, it's like an arms race. We trying to develop new tools to try and combat trafficking, and then the perpetrators are coming up with new ways of trafficking fins. So it is a bit of a battle, because they have lots of different techniques in which they smuggle fins across borders, and that's what we're trying to do with these training sessions. Besides the ID tools, we give them a lot of information as well beforehand of detection methods. So, we've looked at seizures over time, and we see the way they're transporting fins. Either they must be clearing them under other names, or lots of different methods that they're using. And part of this training, we provide them with that information, smuggling techniques that they're using, and different loopholes that they're using as well. And it was great. Part of the training session, we had these discussions with customs officials. I showed them the data that we've seen on a global level and within South Africa, and they gave us information of what's actually happening on the ground, and we connected loopholes and found out information that either of us didn't know. So it's a great collaborative tool as well, and a lot of good came out of the training that we're going to take forward and investigate further. Just because we communicating with our government officials, we're sharing information. So, and I think that's what also makes us stronger in terms of stopping those perpetrators. We need to work together. So, yeah, but it is both of finding new techniques.
Final question. We get to see and read and engage with content from various media sources. And depending on who you listen to, which agenda they're pushing, there's this picture that the situation is dire and that a lot of these species are on the endangered list. I mean, there are more than 40 shark and ray species on the Convention on International Trade and Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, right? At CITES.
Yes.
Depending on who you listen to, Simone, you get a different picture. What is the actual situation? Are we looking at a species that they're becoming extinct, they are in serious danger of becoming extinct? Or is it a situation where you, through these interventions, through these technologies, are slowly, very slowly trying to correct that balance?
So first of all, that is a big question. But I definitely think we are on the brink. Like, we are at the stage where sharks are heavily impacted by fishing. not just in coastal waters, it's also out in the open ocean. So there is a huge impact. Fisheries across the world, we are catching sharks, their meat and for their fins, but it is through these interventions. It's just, I would say more needs to be done because sharks are slow growing. The impact on their populations compared to what the rate at which they can recover is a lot slower. So I think more interventions need to be put in place. With these interventions, we're helping our customs officials and our fisheries officials to capacitate them. But I would say more needs to be done on the fisheries level. What's actually happening out in the oceans? More regulations need to be put in place to curb them before they're being caught. Because we put in interventions in place after the sharks have been caught, after their fins have been cut off and they're already in trade. More needs to be done at the start of the trade supply chain, in the fisheries, where they're being caught. That's where a lot of work needs to still be done. And with fisheries in general, it's always complicated because fisheries, it's a global issue and it provides a lot of income to coastal communities and things like that. So you need to find the balance